Hey guys, welcome to Let Hallie Read. Today we are going to throw it back to... That was a really stupid way to introduce what we're talking about. I was trying to point to my books, but it just didn't really work out well. It is Throwback Thursday, and we are going to talk about Harry Potter. It may seem kind of odd to think of Harry Potter as a throwback because it's still being talked about today. The first book, Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone, or Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone, came out in 1997, so it's definitely a throwback. I was trying to decide what I wanted to talk about when it came to Harry Potter. It's been talked about so much, the books, the characters, the movies. I ultimately decided to talk about the unpopular Harry Potter opinions. Okay, so this is 23 unpopular Harry Potter opinions. Number 1 is Neville should have been the chosen one. Neville is better than Harry. Neville is more caring, courageous, and dependable. Harry did a lot of the legwork because he was labeled the chosen one, but Neville was the one who destroyed the final Horcrux in the end, allowing Voldemort to be killed. I think Harry was as equally caring, courageous, and dependable. I love Neville, don't get me wrong, I love Neville. I love what he represented. I loved how his character grew, but I'm fine with Harry being the chosen one. And I feel like if Neville would have ended up being the chosen one, we'd probably all be sitting here saying Harry should have been the chosen one. Neville's story would have been just as compelling because his parents are alive. I think that would have made for a different take and a different perspective. I don't necessarily think that Neville is better than Harry or Harry is better than Neville. I think they're both equally great. Okay, number 2. Fred and George are overrated. I don't think they were overrated. I think that they served a purpose. Fred and George were the comic relief of the book. And so I think when Fred dies, it truly showed us that 1, no one is safe from Voldemort, and 2, it put a lot of weight around the darkness of the last book. I like Fred and George. They're cool. I see their purpose in the book. Number 3, Hermione should have ended up with Victor Crumb. What does this person have to say about this? I actually only ever liked her being with Victor Crumb, the hot and chivalrous foreign athlete who appreciated her right from the start. No, what are you thinking? Victor Crumb was there as, I guess, maybe like a foil for the whole Ron and Hermione relationship, trying to kind of help Ron realize that he doesn't like her being with other people. And I think Victor Crumb was a very nice guy, but you know, just because someone shows interest in you does not mean you have anything in common with them. And they didn't. And Hermione made that very clear, that they didn't have much in common. I think what she says is that he just kind of sits there and watches her read. I can't remember if that was in the books or the movies. I've watched the movies way more recently than I've read the books. But if I remember correctly, she started to find him unappealing and a little bit boring, and I don't think they really had much in common or anything to talk about. I'm sure he was very sweet, but yeah, no. Hermione, no. Number 4, Hermione should have ended up with Malfoy. I think that Malfoy and Hermione fought so much because of all the sexual tension between them. I'm not against the unpopular opinion that Hermione and Malfoy could have ended up together. If they were going to end up together, then it needed to be established that Malfoy could be changed, I guess, or could show some kind of remorse for how he treated her, but he never really does. Maybe he would have been better to her, maybe he would have been nicer to her, but it doesn't excuse how he treated her in the past. So, as I said, not that I hate the idea of Hermione ending up with Malfoy, but I would I would need to see some character development around that. I'd need to see something that convinced me that he was remorseful for how he acted, that he saw the errors of his ways, but we never really see that. Number 5, Harry and Ginny should have named their child something else. Using the names of Albus Dumbledore, the world's most manipulative wizard, and Severus Snape, an abusive teacher who wants to hook up with Harry's mom, was a mistake. I actually just don't like the name in general because I think I don't know, I just don't think it's a really good sounding name. I always thought it was just a weird sounding name, but that was literally the only reason why I didn't like that they named their kid after Albus and Snape. My reasoning doesn't go beyond that, to be honest with you. I just didn't like how the name sounded. Half-Blood Prince is the worst in the series. The main plot about Harry trying to procure Slughorn's full memory about Tom Riddle's Horcrux questions. Dumbledore already knew all about Horcruxes, so the only thing we gained was that Voldemort created 7 of them. The 6th book is a filler book. It filled in a lot of gaps, and of course you have that devastating ending with Dumbledore dying, which I don't think could have happened as easily in the 5th book, and it really couldn't have happened. I guess maybe it could have happened in the 7th book, but I like that I don't know, I'm weird. I liked the Half-Blood Prince. I know a lot of people are not a huge fan of the Half-Blood Prince, but I liked some more of the explanations. I loved seeing the memories of different people. Yeah, I really, really liked that. It says Dumbledore already knew all about Horcruxes. He may have already knew about them, but I don't think he knew everything about them. I think he needed to know more, and I think he needed probably proof, but that's just me speculating. I do not think Half-Blood Prince is the worst in the series. I actually like all the books. Maybe Chamber of Secrets. Chamber of Secrets might be my least favorite. By no means do I think it's like the worst. It's my least favorite, but it's not bad. It's just if I were to rank them, it would probably be low. Hufflepuff is the best house. Gryffindors can have huge egos and be foolhardy, sure. Ravenclaws can be know-it-alls. And Slytherins can be dishonest and conniving, but the vast majority of Hufflepuffs are kind, smart, and extremely capable, and don't boast about it at all. I can agree with that, and I don't think that's a super unpopular opinion. I think a lot of people love Hufflepuff. I'm a Ravenclaw, so is my husband, so, give it up for Ravenclaws. But Hufflepuff is a really great house, and they don't get enough credit for how good they are. Gryffindor and Slytherin aren't all that different. Yeah, I can agree with that. They're both ambitious in different ways. They're both courageous in different ways. And I think what we didn't see in the books is a good example of a good Slytherin. Slytherin is always portrayed as this, evil house. And anyone who's in Slytherin is meant to be very suspicious. But I would have really liked to see a character in the books that was in Slytherin that was a good person, but definitely had their own struggles. And maybe there is one. If there's one, let me know. Off the top of my head, I can't really think of anybody. I know that Severus Snape was in Slytherin and he ended up being a good guy. I think this is definitely true. I don't think they are that different. I do think that Slytherin gets a bad rap, but I think the reason for that is that we never really get to see a good character from Slytherin. 9, Luna Lovegood is the best character. That's not an unpopular opinion. I think a ton of people love Luna Lovegood. I needed more of Luna, especially in the movies. I need more Luna. Draco Malfoy deserved better. Malfoy deserved a redemption arc. I agree with this. I felt like we were seeing some minor growth towards the end, like very little, like minuscule. But I think that we could have connected with him a lot more. We saw a little bit of it in the Half-Blood Prince when he was truly struggling with the decision to kill Dumbledore. And it was giving him a lot of anxiety, and we, for the first time, saw how human he was. He had to live up to a lot of people's expectations, including Voldemort, and that is such a huge weight to put on 16, 17-year-old kid. That's huge. So yeah, I definitely agree that Draco deserved a redemption story. Kind of going back to the other unpopular opinion with Hermione, I think that if we would have gotten a redemption arc for him, I could believe that him and Hermione could have ended up together. Number 11, Albus Dumbledore wasn't all that great. Dumbledore was manipulative. He didn't care about anyone but himself. He used Harry and everyone else around him and didn't care how he accomplished his goals because the ends always justified the means. He left Harry to suffer with the Dursleys rather than with anyone in the wizarding world. I'm pretty sure he did that so that he could be hidden away from Voldemort and his followers, so that was his motive there. He kept very important information from Harry, which left Harry struggling to find out everything on his own after Dumbledore died. He was a jerk, and I hate how people still idolize him. I don't think I ever idolized him, but I think him not being all that great is not that much of an unpopular opinion anymore. He was definitely problematic, but I do think that everything he was doing was for the greater good, and I think he had his reasons. I don't think he was being super selfish when he was keeping things from Harry. I think he had to do it because it's just like one of those things that, like, if if you know what's going to happen, you're going to go out of your way to either make sure it happens or make sure it doesn't happen. And I think that's kind of that's where I always saw Dumbledore coming from, is that he couldn't tell Harry because if he did, the plan wouldn't work out. And so I think he had a great affection for Harry. I think he believed in him. And I actually don't think Dumbledore was that bad, which actually is now an unpopular opinion. As I said, I don't idolize him. He was definitely problematic because he was human. You know, that's what I love about character writing, is I want them to be human. I want them to have struggled. I want them to be a little problematic because they're imperfect. Number 12, Severus Snape wasn't all that great. Kind of go both ways on this one. One, in my defense of Snape, he risked his entire life to go undercover for Dumbledore, to infiltrate the Death Eaters, make Voldemort believe he was a Death Eater. If he was found out by Voldemort that he was, you know, in cahoots with Dumbledore this whole time, he would have died probably a horrible, horrible, painful, torturous death. So he risked a lot. He risked a lot to do the right thing. He always had good intentions for the whole. However, I don't think that excuses his behavior towards his students and towards Harry especially. I definitely understand why Snape is a problematic character for many people, but I do see the good in him, but I also, as I said, see the bad as well. The good things he did does not excuse his behavior for being a bully and being awful to them. I've always appreciated Snape, and again, just like Dumbledore, that's probably my unpopular opinion, because I feel like the Snape not being too great is a very popular opinion now. Number 13 says, actually, Harry ain't all that either. As much as I love this series and everybody in it, Harry Potter kind of sucks as a character. He's selfish, only complains about his own problems, and low-key enjoys feeling like the world is against him to justify being awful to people who care about him. I think he's a teenager that got thrust into this world that he knew nothing about, that no one prepared him for. I think the reason he was being awful in the Order of the Phoenix was literally because Voldemort was infiltrating his mind. He was dealing with a lot of mental anguish because of that. I don't agree that he low-key enjoyed being the center of attention or feeling like the world was against him. I don't think he enjoyed that. I think he was actually very frustrated with it. And I think that if he could have been just a normal kid, he would have just been a normal kid. 14, Harry didn't know how to take care of pets. Harry was an awful pet owner. He kept Hedwig locked up, yelled at her all the time, and tossed her around all the time. Due to his recklessness, justice for Hedwig. I've never really thought about this one, to be honest. I don't know when he really was reckless, though. I know that in the second book, they had to get him out, which, again, I'm remembering more of the movie than I am the book. I remember him having to kind of get Hedwig out quickly, and that was kind of a ruckus. And I know that, you know, when he lived with the Dursleys, he wasn't allowed to let her out. So I don't know. I don't think he was an awful pet owner, but to be honest, I didn't really want to read pages and pages of how Harry was taking care of Hedwig. Number 15, the first 4 movies didn't do the books justice. I've always been a believer that we cannot fit everything in an adaptation. So that's why I've always given adaptations the benefit of the doubt, unless they're just completely off base. I think with the Harry Potter movies, they did a really good job fitting in what they could have. Some things that I wish they could have added in the movies from the books, but I understand why. Harry deserved his detentions in Order of the Phoenix, but not the abusive punishment. I mean, sure, Harry deserved his detentions. I don't think that was ever really the argument that he shouldn't have. But no, I mean, he obviously didn't deserve the punishment. Yeah, I can agree with all of that. I don't know if that's a super unpopular opinion. I don't know. Does anyone out there think that he shouldn't have ever gotten detention in the 5th book? Number 17, Harry and Ginny's relationship wasn't believable. I agree with this. I do not like the Harry and Ginny relationship. I just don't. I do not think they're believable. I did not think they had chemistry either in the books nor the movies. I didn't like them together. It wasn't believable for me. I personally wanted Harry and Luna to get together. Harry and Luna had much better chemistry than Harry and Jenny, especially in the movies. They really were able to build out that relationship where they had like these really private moments and it was really, really sweet. And yeah, I was never a Harry Ginny fan. I'm a Harry Luna fan all the way. 18, Harry and Dumbledore's bond wasn't what people thought it was. I don't know. I think they did have a good bond. I believe their bond in the books and the movies. I believe the bond that Harry had with Hagrid. That, or just maybe I'm not thinking about it enough. I don't know. 19, Hagrid did more for Harry than Sirius Black. Sirius got all of the credit for being Harry's only parental figure. Really, it was Hagrid who was the only consistent parental figure in his life. I definitely agree that Hagrid did more for Harry. But it's because Sirius didn't have the time to do more for Harry. We didn't really get a good glimpse into the Harry-Sirius relationship because Sirius died very quickly after they had met. Fourth book, I know that they wrote a lot to each other, but there was very little that Sirius could do for him because he was often hiding. There was nothing Sirius could do for Harry at the time. But yeah, I definitely agree that Hagrid did more for Harry, but that's because Hagrid had the abilities to do more. If Sirius lived, I think that he would have been a great parental figure for Harry, and I think that he would have done plenty for him, but we just didn't get the chance to see that. 20, Harry should not have lived past the final battle. Harry Potter should have died in the end as well as Voldemort. Put an end to an epic series. That would have been a really interesting ending. That would have been an epic ending. I don't hate that idea. I don't hate that storyline at all. But I will say that enough characters were killed off where it was very believable that no one was safe. And I think that, for much of it, I didn't even think that Harry would be safe. 21, Voldemort actually had the saddest backstory. I definitely agree with that. I think he had a horrible, horrible backstory, a really sad backstory. He was not born of love. And that is kind of where all of his angst and all of his evilness started, was the fact that he was not born out of love. He was born out of manipulation. And it is really sad. It obviously doesn't excuse anything that he's done, but I think we can at least look at him and say, yeah, that's a really sad backstory. Like, fair enough. Number 22, the finale of the series was anticlimactic. The final face-off with Voldemort was both over the top with all the flying around as well as underwhelming, with Voldy turning into gray cornflakes and blowing away, and breaking the last book into 2 films was nothing but a cash grab. So obviously they're talking about the film ending here. It did end differently in the books. I was perfectly fine with the ending. The very last book was huge, so I don't really know how they could have fit everything into just one movie. I do feel like Deathly Hallows Part 1 was just a lot of them moving around from place to place to place, and that got a little monotonous at times. I definitely saw the purpose it served, because here's the thing. They're not gonna find the Horcruxes all in one movie. It's unrealistic. They're gonna have to journey. They're gonna have to go through some stuff, and they're gonna have to go through a lot of monotonous camping out and waiting and waiting and waiting, and it was just more realistic that way. So I was perfectly fine with them splitting it up, and I was fine with the ending. I thought him blowing away into ash, and especially the look on his face and how it turned, really cool cinematically. And last one, 23, the movies are better than the books. What? There's so much more detail in the books. Like I was saying earlier, there are things that I wish they would have added into the movies, and I understand why they couldn't. You just don't have time, right? I feel like if they would have added the storyline of Hermione helping the house elves at Hogwarts, it would have been filler, and it wasn't necessary for the movies. I loved it in the books, but it just wasn't necessary. I do think Percy's storyline was a little bit necessary, since they showed him on the Ministry side, and we really didn't know why unless you read the books. But no, the books are much more detailed. The books are much more better than the movies. I mean, I love the movies. I think they did a really, really good job with the movies. Yeah, but the books are always going to give us more. Okay, that's it, guys. Tell me your unpopular Harry Potter opinions. Tell me what you love about Harry Potter. Tell me what you have not liked about Harry Potter. Remember that when it comes to Harry Potter was so special to many of us growing up. And how I've been able to continue loving the series is I view it as a child who we are protecting from the unhealthy parent. That's how I see it. But obviously you have to follow your convictions and do what you have to do. I'll see you next time. Thanks, guys.